Esther, gallerist, intuitive doer, mother, and entrepreneur. You good?
I'd also add friend.
Okay, friend. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Claire.
I'm so happy you're here today.
Same here. What a wonderful, breezy fall afternoon to be
Very breezy
in LA.
Well, yeah, I'm so happy you're here. We are going to talk about all things intuition. I know you are a big believer of the power of the intuition. Most people don't even know what an intuition is, how to develop it, and how to listen to it. So let's just jump right in. Can you answer any questions?
Sure. It's interesting. So I think some people are born with a greater propensity for it than others. I think for me, intuition had to be something that came from within, from myself. Nobody could teach me, mostly because I think I was growing up in Texas in a kind of traditional Korean, first generation Korean family, where it was a patriarchal family. I had a younger brother. The younger brother was certainly favored. I had interests that were not so common. I was very interested in art from a very young age. Making art, I was a big maker of things. And my high school, my kind of K through 12 experience was at a very conservative Christian school that had a procreationist library.
Wow.
That was predominantly, I think I was maybe the token Asian kid in all
the school.
Like it was like 3 of us. Yeah.
Wow.
K through 12,
Okay.
and
A lot of white people.
yes, 99%.
Okay.
And not just white people, it's like Christians.
Super
Southern
white.
Baptist. Yeah. Southern Baptist white people. There was nobody telling me or showing me how to define myself. Because I was always just a little different. And I think when you're in an environment where the kind of messages that you receive around you, maybe the art thing isn't so important. Maybe, this is more important, or that football's more important. You just have to figure out how to follow what interests you, what feels very true to you. And I will say, I have a couple of examples, like in my early years where I just followed that.
Give it to us.
Well, every Korean parent will be like, you've got to go to an Ivy League school. And I'm like, you're sending me to a school who in its 30-year history has never sent the kid to an Ivy League school. Like, how am I going to make that happen? But freshman year, my English teacher.
Freshman year of college.
Of high school.
Of high school.
Freshman year of high school, my English teacher happened to be a recent graduate from Yale. And she took me under her wing. And after that year of being there, I was like, I'm going to go to Yale. And I ordered a poster and a brochure. And I had that in my room for 3 years. And I applied early and I got in.
Wow.
So it was like, but I knew that it was like somehow my life was going to end there. Like I felt it and I went with it. And I think with a lot of hard work, you kind of believe that you can defy the odds when you feel something is so right in the direction that you're going. And I feel like that's something that I've carried with me, that kind of seeing the shadows of the future, like 5 years into the future, 10 years into the future has always been very natural to me. And that kind of visualization of where I'm going to be. And I really will say it comes in intervals. Like, what is it going to be in three years? And I have a sense of that. What is that going to be in 5 years? And then 10 years, I have a sense of that. Beyond that, I can't really see. But yeah, that was, I think, really one of the earliest like concrete examples where I was like,
intuition, goal, hard work to get there.
Yeah.
And would you say that that's kind of the route that you've taken to launch your galleries.
Yeah. I mean, when I got to college, I wanted to be an art history major. My parents were like, how are you going to make any money off of that? They're like, you need to go get a PhD, get a doctorate. At least if you fail, you can teach. You know what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I went to Columbia. I was doing my PhD. But I really wanted to be entrepreneurial. I really wanted to tap into the business side. I was working at galleries. I took artists to art fairs starting at 22 while I was doing the PhD stuff. I opened my first gallery at 24 with two other partners in New York City. I knew that was going to be a failure, mostly because I'm super bossy. And it's really hard to have two other partners.
I don't believe in business partners. There has to be an owner. There has to be a 51%er. I agree.
Experience. Well, also, like, I think there are certain
bossy
people,
or not.
I have a very clear idea of what I want.
And I think that's the difference.
Yeah. And I don't like people or structures getting in my way to execute that idea. But my comfort zone now, and for a long time, has been pushing up against those that say no, or the systems that say no to you. And you know that you have to push through those.
You're comfortable pushing up against it.
I feel like I am the most alive.
You're made for it.
I love it. I love it because because I also really believe that if you are willing to work hard and if you have enough conviction in you to convince others around you that your way is the right way and it's worthwhile to follow what I'm doing, it happens. You have the ability to change systems and to make them better. But it has to be for the right reasons. It has to be for more fairness, more access for people like me, more distribution of wealth for people like me that might not have had the access to make a business in the art world before me.
So how did you get this way? So clear, and intuition mixed with hard work gets you the goal, because a lot of people have intuition. A lot of people feel things, but they're unable to manifest. Was it your parents?
I mean, I think that must have something to do with it. My dad is a little bit like that.
Okay.
He is like the typical story. You know, my grandparents are North Korean refugees, North Korean. So they were North Korean refugees to South Korea, and then they immigrated here. So we were kind of on the run.
Right. You were being beaten down.
Yeah. And I think the survivalist instinct is pretty strong in my family. My grandmother would tell me stories of when she was pregnant with my dad. She walked from Pyongyang in North Korea across the border, eating bark off of trees to survive. So, I mean, I think it was definitely built into me. But when my dad came to the States, have you seen that movie Minari?
No.
Oh, it's such a good movie. But it's a movie.
I will now.
You should watch it. It won some Oscars a couple of years ago, and it's about this Korean family that moves to Arkansas and opens up a farm, and it's like their failures, you know. And my dad, when I was born, my dad's first kind of business in Texas was a shiitake mushroom farm, and which failed and went into almost bankruptcy. And in bankruptcy court, the judge was like, sir, how old are you? He was 30. And he was like, you are way too young to file for bankruptcy. He was like, sell what you have. He sold everything that he had,
wow.
All the land that he had, kind of invested in, all the machines, all the equipment for $400 to avoid bankruptcy. And then he rebuilt, and he ended up rebuilding, kind of fast forward, like built a janitorial business that, he just looked around and was like, what do people need? And he realized a lot of Asians and Koreans were immigrating to Texas, and they could not get a job because they couldn't speak English. So he started a business that would contract with airports and hotels, cleaning, and that became national. And at one point, I think by the time I was 10, he had 5,000 employees, and then moved on and started buying apartment complexes and shopping centers, and moved into the oil and gas business. I remember that was a huge part of me growing up, because doing oil and gas exploration. I am not an oil and gas person now. I think probably in reaction to my upbringing. But and I remember it's like his attitude was very much, I remember my brother was drinking Dr. Pepper at home one day, and we were 13 and he was 11, and he was very upset at my parents because they wouldn't buy him a Coke fridge for his room. Do you know what a Coke fridge is?
Of course.
Okay. And it was like,
what kid thinks they need a Coke fridge?
Well,
all of them, but who actually thinks they're going to get it?
Yeah. And my dad was like, you don't even drink Coke. You drink Dr. Pepper. And he was like, what? And my dad has a very thick Korean accent. He was like, well, you don't even drink Coke. And my brother was like, well, Dr. Pepper is superior. He went into this whole dialogue about why Dr. Pepper was superior. And then a year later, my dad had bought the rights to Dr. Pepper for Asia. So like,
because of your brother.
Well, he was just like, interesting. It's like everything for him, the world is his oyster. Like he has entered so many businesses that are seemingly impossible or multi-generational where he shouldn't be there. I remember when we were driving to, as my dad would say, visit the rednecks in the oil and gas fields. And I remember, this is also when I was about 13. It was me and my brother and my dad. And my dad, because he has that Korean accent, he was talking to the field manager there that works for him. But he was saying something, and the guy was like so rude. And I remember him being so tall in my memory, brawny Texan guy, and was like, hey, man, I don't understand what you're saying. Your accent's too thick.
But that's probably a polite way of how it actually went down.
Yeah, that was a polite way. But I remember my dad's response. And he said, do you understand what I'm saying now? You're fired.
Go, Dad.
So it was always those moments where I'm like, yeah, don't take shit from people.
Yeah.
Like, you know what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you have an accent.
No.
Make it so that they hear what you're saying.
Correct.
Don't bend to other people.
Don't bend anything to other people. Your intuition.
Yeah.
Your anything.
And I remember when I was like, Dad, I really want to open an art gallery. And I was like, but it seems so unfair because people that know the art business is like, it's a multi-generational business. A lot of the gallery owners then pass down their knowledge, and the art market is a secret society of sorts. Like there are no rules out there. It's an unregulated market. It is really one of the most challenging markets to penetrate, to understand and gain visibility. And I said to my dad, I was like, it's really unfair though, because I feel like I don't have an advantage. And he said, you speak English. It's like, that's your advantage. Figure it out.
And I was like, I don't see obstacles.
Yeah. He was just like, you speak English. And
he's not wrong. Look at you now. You have the hottest gallery in the cities where you are.
Well, thank you.
You do.
Thank you for saying that. But also why you're a friend of mine, because I like keeping my cheerleaders next to me. But yeah, I mean, I think, again, so much of, and I probably saw, a lot of those glimpses of my dad acting that way, or my dad moving through the world in that way, even though he never saw me as the inheritor of his businesses. He always saw my younger brother because he was the boy. But I think that then made me an ultra feminist out to prove him wrong.
Of course.
and a fighter.
Has he since been converted?
Oh yeah. I mean, I spent my entire life, ever since the age of 6, like protesting and protest. I was always protesting in my house. Like it was I would not do anything. I would not play with dolls. I was a tomboy. I was protesting the kind of difference. And I would say to them, you're the last of your generation that will think your way. We kind of have found out that's not true.
I know, but you were just trying to manifest it.
I was trying to manifest. I was like, and so, yeah, I mean, that's a little bit of that kind of intuitive journey. I think that I feel like I have no choice sometimes but to pursue.
Right. You're a powerhouse because your dad was. Well, because your dad showed you the example, and you're a powerhouse now in your own right. I think it takes a lot of courage because you're only going to go up against no's. Tell us why you feel alive when you go up against the contrary.
Oh, I mean, I think it's the universe's way of bringing you alive, of like really pushing on your own survival. And it's that threat of insignificance that should put fire in your belly.
Usually tears people down, though. It creates the contrary. So many people don't pursue their dreams because it's so hard to have someone constantly say no.
It's true. I am a fighter, though. It's the fight is for fairness. I think I have this thing. My first child was a boy, and I was held up at the hospital for 3 hours because apparently you can't leave the hospital without assigning a name to your kid. And I really couldn't decide between Julius and Justice.
Sounds fitting.
And
he's Julius now.
He's Julius now. I mean, really mostly because my husband convinced me that Justice is a very heavy name for a little kid.
I can see him saying
Justice,
somebody's got to be Justice.
So yeah, it's certainly a principle that feels very close to my heart, and I think is certainly a driving force to what I've been doing.
So do you think the artists that you attract in your gallery kind of have the same mindset and intention that you do?
Yes, 100%. They are, in one way, shape, or form, pushing up against a limitation of what a certain kind of painting looked like before, or a limitation of what art can be, what kind of mediums you can use. A textile artist that was relegated for so long into craft, which is a derogatory term for art production by women and by kind of indigenous societies, right? It's like a patriarchal term.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I look for, is that same kind of push up against things that, and in that push, a kind of desire to shapeshift systems that don't traditionally have a place for them.
Do you think there's happiness in the push? Like what's the emotion that you feel when you're pushing up?
I wouldn't say it's happiness. I would say it's the pure survival instinct of making yourself heard and making your existence validated.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of success externally and internally. How do you balance your personal happiness with your ambition?
That's a really hard one. But I will say that ambition doesn't always have to be at odds with your personal life. You can be ambitious in every aspect of your life. You can be a good friend. You could be a good partner. You could be a good mother. You can be good And I think that ambition is always set up in conversation with also laying down some expectations, not only for yourself, but the person that is in your personal, in your personal life. When you make an effort to say, to let them understand that you did try your best, and I think that is enough. And I think that is more than enough. It's like you have to try in every area of your life. You can't, it's not, and that's what I think satisfaction looks like, right? Is that you're not favoring one thing in your one aspect of your life so heavily that you're neglecting all these other aspects. You have to be able to, I believe women have been built to be able to do this. I don't know if men have, to be honest. I feel like women are especially good at being a good friend to another. They're especially good at giving hugs to their children. And they're especially good at giving advice to others in your own industry and making them allies, and building allyship and the more allies you build in your life in all of these areas, the easier the workload gets. And that's what I think that traditionally we have gotten wrong. I think traditionally we think, oh, you have to be ambitious. You have to do it all on your own. That's not it. Ambition is all about getting other people, other like-minded people on your team. And it's about synergy. And it's about building, like thoughtfully building the people in your life that will provide that synergy for you. And that is in every area. That includes mom friends. That includes work friends. That includes every category. Workout friends. It's like those that will encourage you and also support you when it's too much for you. And I think that goes into another thing about advice. I have really thought about this a lot, as I'm receding out of my 30s and into my 40s. I think so much. I think during my 30s, I really felt like alone, like I could do it alone. And as I'm going into my 40s, I'm realizing you don't do anything alone. And also at this point, you have the knowledge to look around and be like, that person's a really hardworking person. That person has a good head on their shoulders. That person is positive. Because, we all have friends that are like negative, negative, negative.
I know.
Negative, negative, negative. Spending too much time talking gossip about other people. Spending too much time wishing for something to happen, but not doing anything about it. We all can identify those people in our lives. And I do think it matters who you choose to keep close to you. Because I think if you see a good friend saying, I want to achieve this, and you see their hard work, you see them every day working away at it, you realize things don't happen in a vacuum. It takes work, and you will be inspired by the way that they work. And you can be that inspiration for someone else. And you realize that, making these changes in your life, manifesting things, can be as simple as starting with making a decision about some people you have in your life that you would maybe want to put a little bit more effort into because you want to maybe be more like them.
A lot of people that we know want fame, they want money, they want a successful marriage, but they don't want to do the work to get there.
Yeah. Everything takes work, I think. And I think as women, we are multitaskers like crazy. So even if you think you're lazy or have convinced yourself you're lazy, as a woman, you are not.
You're not lazy.
You're not lazy. Maybe some people around you might tell you you're lazy. Maybe you tell yourself that. Maybe you're your worst enemy. But you're not lazy. I do believe every woman has a capacity to be multitasking, hardworking individuals. You just have to figure out how to direct that work. And you do it through conversations. And I will say, like, anybody that's listening to this and you're like, how am I going to make a little change in my life, even this week? I'd say, look in your phone book, look through your text messages over the last like couple of months. And in there, jot down 3 names of people that you admire, people that you think are hardworking, good people that don't waste too much time gossiping, talking about others. Because that's an energy suck. Remember those 3 people? Text them, call them, and just be like, hey, I was just thinking about you. I appreciate you. So glad you're in my life. I hope we'll stay in each other's lives for a long time going forward. And build a bridge, reinforce a bridge, and tell them that you appreciate them and that you see them, and they will see you. And I think those are small steps, and you'll start realizing you have a community of people that inspire you in your own life. It's already there.
It's already there.
You don't have to go out and try to find new friends. It's already there.
Right.
It could be the hardest working person you see at the grocery store. It could be your trainer who is hustling all the time to make ends meet. It can be literally anybody. And
I love that. That's such good advice.
I think that you start there and you start building yourself up through the company you keep, the people you say you appreciate.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to do that.
It seems easy enough.
What do you do with the rest of everybody else? Do you just keep them at an arm's distance? Do you kind of make more space?
You make more space and you don't let them become earworms into your own mind. Like, you just take it,
How do you not let them become earworms? You just don't answer their calls.
Well, you know how moms are like that? Like, no matter who's your mom, everything my mom says feels like an annoying earworm.
Totally.
And I think we've been trained our entire lives to be able to like shift and be like, that's an earworm,
Yeah.
Like, I think
not everybody, but
not everybody. And unfortunately, sometimes you might be married to that earworm, which is so annoying. But and I know that can be hard. But I think it's about making conscious decisions for yourself. The advice that you choose to keep, the conversations, it's like, if you're in a conversation with somebody, if you're at a lunch with a friend that just is one of those earworm types, fretting about how she needs to lose 3 pounds, which is so annoying. I'm like, really? You only need to lose 3 pounds? Like, you're so skinny that you just don't want to lose. You're fretting about losing 3 pounds. Like, really skinny people only fret about losing 3 pounds. And you're like,
I have never fretted about losing.
I haven't either, but I have people in my life to fret. Yeah, sometimes you're like, inspire me, please. To fret.
Inspire me not to eat that chocolate scone.
No, but I think instead of spending 2 hours at lunch with them, just be like, I'm going to spend an hour.
Okay, gotta go. Super busy. Love you. Bye.
Yeah. Just like create limits for yourself, so it isn't like so much of your mental energy. It's like we have such limited capacity to take things in. And I think we just be a little bit more selective about what we decide to take in.
Yeah, our biggest asset is time.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your inspired journey and your inspired story.
Thank you for having me.
What an interview.